At about 12 noon local time today, India reported its first cases of the Omicron variant as two men in the southern state of Karnataka tested positive. Aged 46 and 66, both men are said to have just returned from overseas. Well, no severe symptoms have been reported in both patients, and the government says all primary and secondary contact of the two patients have been traced and are now being tested. For more on this developing story, we are joined by Dr. Vishal Rao, who is a member of the Genomic Surveillance Committee COVID Task Force in Karnataka, India, where the two cases were detected. He's also the Dean, Center for Academic Research, HCG Cancer Center. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Rao. You know, the last time we spoke, you were reminiscing on how India transitioned from being the epicenter of the Delta variant, but now two cases of the Omicron variant has been detected. First, I wonder if that triggers perhaps a flashback to the dark days of April and May. But at this point, really, what more can you tell us?
Thank you. I think the most important thing that we've had information from the WHO and many of our global experts from UK, USA, and other countries has been that the potential of the Omicron cannot be underestimated. We know that the Omicron has more than 32 mutations compared to that of Delta, which has only about 16. Now, at this juncture, such spike protein mutations make it more transmissible, make it more potentially more virulent, and having a higher potential for vaccine escape mutations. Now, with this background, the data that we've gathered from Botswana, South Africa shows that most of the cases have been of a milder infection with no fatality, but the numbers are very, very less for us to kind of make some strong conclusions on the indolent nature of this particular virus. At this juncture, I think globally now there are more than 20 countries that are already on high alert with Omicron being detected, and India has also detected this. So this, I think, in one point reiterates to us that the war is far from over. I think the Indian government has re-emphasized the need for enhancing and accelerating the vaccination. We know that there is a race between the vaccine and the variant, and government of India and state governments are working neck to neck to ensure that maximum number of people are made responsible to take the second dose. And parallelly, we follow the transmission appropriate behavior.
You know, certainly dealing with the Delta variant will have increased India's capacity to handle this or perhaps any other future eventuality. But in terms of response now from the government, perhaps at the state and the federal level, what are the options on the table? I mean, we've seen countries, about 30 countries, tweaking, travel restrictions and bans here and there. But for India, what are the options on the table?
So the government of India has already issued an advisory to all the states. The current advisory warns the states about looking at a very, very strict vigil on all high-risk countries. But I think overall, each of the international airports have strengthened the vigilance, made COVID reports mandatory, COVID-19 PCR reports mandatory. And third, I think looking at quarantine, either home quarantine or institutional quarantine is being also asked for, even if you're COVID negative for a week. Now, these are steps that are done in order to protect any kind of further entry from international borders, but also at the local level, we've, I think, started work at every state government level to increase the preparation for beds, for manpower, and to look at a possible likelihood of any kind of a surprise. Now, this comes from the data that we've already had, for example, in Karnataka from Delta. Now, if you look at the scenario we got Delta picked up in December in India. And by March, we had a positivity rate of 0.5%. But by end of March, we had it at 5%. And by end of April, it was at 25%. So if you look at the trends of Delta, within 2 months, it could jump from 0.5 to 25. It is very, very crucial that we understand that if Omicron is having a faster transmission than that of Delta, then we are expecting this jump to be faster. So the preparations are currently on for tracing, tracking, testing, but also emphasizing on teamwork at
Mm.
this juncture to ensure and better training for genomic surveillance.
Well, Dr. Rao, I see you coughing there. Can I put in one more question? Is that okay before we wrap up this?
Please.
Okay, so there's a new vaccine on the block, so to speak, for India, and I say this on the back of you talking about vaccination being one of the key points that the government has been making, and this new vaccination, well, new, perhaps a lot of people have not heard about it. It's a DNA plasmid vaccine by Zydus Cadila. I think the name is Zycov-D. What can you tell us about this? I know India has gone quite well in terms of vaccination, but how much of a game changer is this really?
See, I think the Zydus seems to be a very promising DNA vaccine. We've got some very initial promising data from Zydus on this, but what currently we are grappling with is not the shortage of vaccines. It's but about dealing with the behavioral issues of people adopting to take the second dose, or some of them even the first dose. And I think this is an important behavioral intervention we are working towards. While I think the new vaccines will also play a key role to look at whether we can look at a heterogeneous mix for booster doses, and also to look at this as a new ray of hope for people who have not even taken the first dose. And I think this will also help us bridge the vaccine inequalities for many countries that are today grappling with shortage of vaccines.
Well, Dr. Vishal Rao, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. We'd like to thank you so much for taking time out to speak with us. I know that
Thank you.
being a member of that
Namaste.
Genomic Surveillance Committee means that you have a lot of work on your hands right now. I wish you the very best.
Thank you.